more conversation from Katie Blackburn, chief. I forget she is the
VP.
COO?
The EVP of the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay, I forget which. Oh, not even in the C-suite there. That is interesting. EVP. She's running the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, she was in the news because of the Trey Hendrickson comment where she said at some point he's got to be happy with what we offered him. And, that came out on April Fool's. We talked to Trey Hendrickson about it. He didn't expect it. I assume Katie Blackburn on the backside was, that's not what there's a feeling about negotiations where, both sides have to be happy. That's what I was referring to. Whatever the case, seemingly did not fare well in the crowd with that particular statement. Then something else came out through Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio where, he reported about a quote from Kelsey Conway and Katie Blackburn. Kelsey Conway reporting it maybe the Bengals aren't in Paycor Stadium anymore because they have to give a 1-year heads up to Hamilton County, which is obviously the county that Cincinnati is within and owns the stadium there. They have to give them a 1-year head up that they would like a 2-year extension on the lease that they currently have. And in that conversation, which was a great question, by the way, and I don't think any of us even knew this was potentially coming up. Nope. So I appreciate the journalism and all. She said at one point, we could, I guess, go wherever we wanted after this year if we didn't pick up the option, okay? And what the Cincinnati Bengals journalists are saying, that the way that reads versus the way it was actually said is not, she basically was I guess we could go somewhere else. And then she also basically alluded to, when that decision comes time, which is in June of this particular summer, we'll make the decision then. We'll make that's when right now we're not focused on that is kind of how she laid it out. But I think a lot of people were burying her for saying this. And if you listen to the people that were in the room where it happened, that was not the context at all. Although, this is high stakes here.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever you're talking about a team with a stadium, we've obviously seen these conversations happen in the past. Now, this would be the Bengals leasing Paycor Stadium from the county that Cincinnati is in for another 2 years. They have 5 options, a 2-year extension, so that'd be another 10 years. They have to give a year heads up in that whole thing. So they're doing business with the county. Are they renting it? Are they leasing it for 13 times a year for preseason games, regular season games, then potential playoff games if they were to take place at home? And then do they rent it out to, concerts and everything? I don't know how the business goes because we didn't get all the information. We don't have the contract that it has. But anytime a team says, maybe we do have some freedom on the stadium. Happened in Minnesota, they were going to move. Minnesota was going to move out of town because they weren't able to round up a new stadium. This would not be for a new stadium, but I think it would be for a new deal with the people that own the stadium because she even alludes, we would like it to be best for both of us here. So she's using this as leverage, I assume, which all teams will do with their stadium. And then the city is probably just waiting, to see what you do. And I don't think this is a raise taxes situation because they don't need to build a new stadium, but it's certainly something that needs to get figured out. And I remember there was a time before I got here in Indianapolis, RCA Dome was the Colts stadium. And allegedly the story goes, because Jim Irsay has a house in Los Angeles, he was in LA and he was in a helicopter and he was flying either to his house or from his house. And then somebody, leaked back to Indianapolis that Jim Irsay was in a helicopter in Los Angeles. And that was always the city that was kind of getting dangled over all these other stadiums and cities' heads. Hey, we'll pick up and go to Los Angeles. You don't want to give us a new stadium. We'll pick up and leave. I don't think Jim was even looking for stadium sites. I think Jim was literally just going to his house in Los Angeles. But then it got reported that he was looking in LA. And then all of a sudden there's a vote and all of a sudden Lucas Oil Stadium is kind of built. And the city owns it. The Colts pay a lease each year, so they don't get to have all the money for all the other events that take place. But it's this is very normal for NFL teams to do. Happened in St. Louis, obviously, so much so that they got up and left. Happened in San Diego. They got up and left. Both of them went to Los Angeles. People talk about San Antonio wants a team. Every time a team needs something, they will certainly find a location that could, hey, these people would love it over here. I don't think that's what's happening here, though. And that's kind of how it was being talked about. I don't think that is the case here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, no, it absolutely reads like that's what she was hinting at, suggesting, hey, if we don't get something done, relocation is a possibility. And I don't think, if you look into it a little bit more and obviously how important the Bengals are to Cincinnati and everything, but this also seems like a situation like you said, she's got a lot of other stuff on her plate right now in terms of like the Trey Hendrickson stuff and everything. So a decision on this doesn't need to be made till next year. But you would also think like there's no way the city wants to bungle this either. Exactly. I didn't even try to do that, but they want this to get done as well. I mean, the situation where it's at in Cincinnati, in between the two stadiums, with like all the bars right there, like what it does for the local economy on game days and everything. Like they want to make sure this gets done too. And I think anyone who jumped to the conclusion like, oh man, they might be relocating, like obviously like that is not going to happen.
I don't think it helped coming off the heels of yesterday.
What Trey Hendrickson?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Like the Trey Hendrickson thing, I believe that that was a dumb. Listen, you're running an NFL team. There's a lot. Okay, every word is scrutinized. Mm-hmm. Billions of dollars at play, hundreds of millions at play. There's a lot. I think alluding to somebody who's the sack king, all-pro, a guy that doesn't get a lot of respect outside of a building, kind of speaking in a way lacking respect inside the building. Don't know if that's the best way to get things done. And Trey Hendrickson obviously was like, what the hell? We haven't even talked in a couple months, basically. So I think that was certainly a mistake, and I assume she would say the same thing. This whole, I guess we could go somewhere else, I don't think that was vindictive at all. I think it was just like her speaking as a matter of fact. Like, I guess we could go somewhere else, but she was just answering a question.
Yeah, like the Trey thing, you can read it, and no matter what the tone was, the words themselves were absurd. And then with the stadium entire situation, that is one where like, holy shit, look at the headline, and then you read the entire transcript, even without the question that was asked, just her words. It's like, oh, okay, so the headline kind of takes it out of
what?
The headline, in fact,
you're saying headlines may be a little misleading.
Yeah, there's a chance that it was negative here because
really?
When I did read it, I did read it as like, I guess we went to the moon. It was one of those.
All right, that's how I read it. We don't need to get into that.
That's how I read it.
Now, have you heard what's going on in Cincinnati? A rumored story we chit-chatted about. Fresh off the Trey Hendrickson, he should be happy with, line from the owners' meetings. Katie Blackburn was quoted as saying, we could, I guess, go wherever we wanted after this year if we didn't pick up the option, which is a 2-year extension to stay at Paycor Stadium, which they have to make the decision by June 30th of this year to give a year heads up to Hamilton so that they can start marketing to other people to potentially want to lease that stadium. Maybe us.
Interesting.
Maybe we'll lease a stadium and have a good time in there. Maybe. Who knows? Whatever the case would be. Doesn't feel like it's a big deal, especially from the people that were in the room said it's not a big deal. But the Bengals are literally a part of the fabric of society over there in Cincinnati. Right, AJ?
Yeah, they absolutely are. This is kind of like the stadium thing's been going on for a few years in Cincinnati, like somewhat behind the scenes, I believe. But like, I guess the city, they're haggling over, I think, how they share revenue, like how much other events can happen in the stadium. Like, I guess Hamilton County, I think they proposed like $1.25 billion renovation plan for everything. And now the Bengals have been going back and forth, I guess, trying to figure out who pays for it, how much you pay for it, and then who gets to split everything and how it works.
Yeah, and once again, I believe this lady, Katie Blackburn, EVP currently of the Bengals, has evolved the Bengals into the 21st century. Mm-hmm. More, right? I think we would all agree with that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, I think she's getting murdered because of the Trey Hendrickson line. Mm-hmm. But owners will say stuff, and I mean, Jerry's in the middle of it right now, which we'll certainly talk. Yeah. It's like I don't think Katie meant to say. I assume once she read it and heard it and saw their reaction, she wasn't like pumped that she was the one that caused that, especially with Trey feeling disrespected, which should. This guy's an all-pro. He's sack king. You're talking about him as if he's just a guy who's lucky to be on the roster, and that's how it kind of came across. So I assume but this particular one, I think people were piggybacking on this, like, this lady's the I disagree with that. I think she has, I'm not in the city, but I think she has tried to make the Bengals become a 2025 operation. Is that accurate from somebody who lives in Ohio and from the area?
I think 100% accurate. I was there for one season. Katie's there every day. Her daughters are there. Like, it's an absolute family thing. And she has brought she's made the Bengals very respectable, which, some people have respect. Before the last 10, 15, 20 years, the Bengals were looked at, much differently.
Yeah. So Katie definitely said something dumb about Trey Hendrickson is what we're saying. But also, this is not something that she should be getting absolutely crucified for.